Jake Stuart with the National Sports Media Association. Today, I'm joined by 2021 Sportscaster of the Year for the state of Missouri, John Rooney. John, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on your award.
Well, Jake, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. And yes, it's quite an honor. I'm very humbled by it.
Now, John, you first won this award actually through Illinois. We talked about this back in 2005. You were the play-by-play voice of the Chicago White Sox. Now you're the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals. What does it mean to be recognized not once but twice by the National Sports Media Association?
Well, it was a real honor in Illinois, but I didn't know I had won in Illinois in 2005 until I got a call from Dave telling me that I won the Missouri Award this year. And so that was kind of a nice surprise, kind of like a doubleheader. But to be honored by my peers and to be considered to be one of the best in the state, whether it's Illinois, Missouri, or anywhere in the country, there's so many good ones out there. And so many have been honored in Missouri, and a lot of those I know. I mean, Jack Buck dominated the honor for so many years here, and Joe Buck has been honored, and Mike Kelly of Missouri so deservedly won the award, and he does a great job with the Tiger game. So no, it's a great group to be in, and I've been so blessed over the last 50 years in this business.
Now, John, you've covered everything from the All-Star game to the World Series. I don't want to make you pick one, but what's been one of your favorite events to cover, and why would you pick that one?
Well, I did the Final Four for 19 years. I did at least one game in the Final Four because Kaywood Ledford one year lost his voice doing the 2 Saturday games and then couldn't do the championship game on Monday. And so Jim Host decided he'd bring in another announcer to do one game Saturday. Kaywood did the other. And then I sat by, and if I didn't have to get back to baseball, I could do some interviews on Monday. And that's what I did for several years, for 9 years. And then when Kaywood retired, I took over the championship game for 10 years. And Marty Brenneman was the other announcer on Saturday. And I guess Jim Host liked baseball announcers. So we got the job with the Final Four. But to me, there's nothing like that Saturday where you have all 4 schools in the building. Semifinal Saturday has all the colors, and every pass has some anxiety to it. It seems like everything means something. And that's one of the most fun days to be around in sports. And I love baseball. I've always loved baseball since I was a kid. I started playing when I was 6, 7 years old, and followed the Kansas City A's and the St. Louis Cardinals in Missouri. And then the A's moved out and the Cardinals became my team at that point. And I followed the Royals some because I grew up about half hour from Royal Stadium, but always had a love for the National League game too. And that 64 Cardinal team, and my former partner, Mike Shannon, was a big part of that. That made me a Cardinal fan.
Wow, that's an awesome story when you talk about how young you were getting into sports. What made you want to get into broadcasting though?
Well, my cousin, Dennis Rooney, was a newsman in Kansas City, and he wanted to be a top 40 disc jockey at WHB or their sister station, KXOK in St. Louis. And I looked at him one day, and he's about 3 or 4 years older than me. And I said, "You can do that?" He said, "Sure, I'm going to do that." And he ended up being a very good newsman. And he passed on just a few years ago, but very well respected in Kansas City. And so I thought, well, if you can do that, I can be a baseball announcer. I love listening to the games, and I am one of those people who had the little transistor radio that could pick up the Minnesota Twins to hear Herb Carneal, Halsey Hall, and Ray Scott do the games, or listen to By Sam doing the Philadelphia Phillies, or Jack Buck and Harry Carey doing the Cardinals. You could pick up a number of stations where I lived outside of Kansas City, and I thought, man, the roar of the crowd and to be able to sit there and watch baseball games and talk about it, what a great life that would be. And you know what? It has been a great life.
Oh, you mentioned the Bucks and Harry as well. Who are some of the sportscasters that you looked up to then, and maybe a couple that you look up to now as well?
Well, in Kansas City, Denny Matthews is still doing the Royals, and he was there opening day, and he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But his partner was Bud Blattner, and Bud did the St. Louis Hawks games. And he also did Game of the Week with Dizzy Dean. And Bud was so nice to me and so good that they welcomed me into the booth when I was 16 years old, when I got started in broadcasting in Lexington, Missouri. And they were so welcoming, and they answered all my questions and welcomed me back again years later. And Denny is still a good friend to this day.
Well, I'm curious, John, for a guy as tenured as yourself, you've been in this industry for so many years. How much did your work change as a result of COVID-19, if at all?
Oh, it changed a lot because we had to do our road games. In fact, we did all games for the longest time by the remote, where we were on TV, and we had to, just watch the monitor, watch the play-by-play as it was sent to us from the other ballparks, and so that was really different. And you were at the mercy of the director when that kind of thing took place. So it was really interesting to sit there and see the all nine in one picture on the screen on the left, and a bullpen, the scoreboard, and then look to see what the viewers at home could see on the telecast and try to call play by play from that. Like Charlie Steiner in Los Angeles did the games from his living room off the TV monitor. It changed the whole industry, and changed a lot about the way I do Missouri Valley basketball. And the producer and director are in Kansas City, where I might be in Normal, Illinois, at Illinois State, or at SIU, or somewhere else. The announcers are on site, but the production crew is elsewhere. But it seemed to work out quite well. And that's good for those folks because they get a lot more time at home with their families.
They sure do. Well, John, do you have a favorite or a most memorable game that you've been able to cover? Well, whether it's baseball or basketball, you mentioned the semifinals in March Madness, but how about a specific game? Is there one that stands out to you?
Well, my first championship game, working with Bill Raftery in the NCAA tournament, was in New Orleans when Chris Webber called the timeout he didn't have, and that happened right there in front of us. And that game was memorable because that was my first championship, but probably my first Final Four game. I was doing Houston and Virginia, and that was a year after Ralph Sampson had graduated, and Houston took him to overtime, or Virginia took Houston to overtime in that. And it was such an entertaining game. But I worked with Kirk Gowdy, and he was a guy that I had watched and listened to while growing up, and he was the epitome of American sports. He was the American sportsman. He had a hunting and fishing show, and he did football, he did basketball, he did a little bit of everything. He could not have been nicer to work with. And I looked at him right before tip-off of that Houston Virginia game, and I said, why am I here? You're Kirk Gowdy. And he said, I didn't want to do the play-by-play anymore. I'd like to host this and just have a little fun. Let's have some fun with this. And we really did. And that particular game, that got me to New York working with CBS after that.
Wow.
I replaced Win Elliott, who gave up the Sports Central USA, but they had cut him back from 15 minutes to about 3 minutes on his reports. And but I did that for a while, Major League Baseball, did some NFL, and filled in some for Jack Buck on Monday Night Football, and had a great run there at CBS, and had a pretty good run with ESPN Radio, and did some Fox TV when they got baseball. But being a local announcer, I think that it's always good to have a base. Jack Buck said that years ago. You can do all the national you want, but you need the base to fall back on, because in the long run, that's where you're going to enjoy your work the most. And he's right, to be able to do the White Sox for 18 years. And this is my 17th year with the Cardinals now. And I've been so lucky. I had 1 year in Minnesota in '87, and they beat the Cardinals in the World Series. Then I went to the White Sox, and 18 years later, they beat Houston in the World Series. And the next year I went to St. Louis, and St. Louis beat Detroit in the World Series. And we got back there again in 11 and in 13. And we won in 11, but not in 13 when the Red Sox won. But to still be in that kind of competitive environment where you go to the ballpark every day and you feel like you have a chance to win, that was a blessing. And with Mr. Reinsdorf also owning the Bulls, I did 30 Bulls games a year for 3 years filling in. And that was a lot of fun to be around Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and John Paxson, and Bill Cartwright, and that bunch. Horace Grant. What a memorable time that was. And my last year was their first championship. So I have a nice ring collection.
I was going to say, I don't know if you believe in luck, John, but you sure seem like you brought some luck to these teams that you've been around over your time. Well, the last question I wanted to ask you, and thanks so much for your time again, is, what advice would you give to sportscasters just getting into the industry now?
Well, I know that you love what you do, right? You
Absolutely.
love it. You're getting started. Yep. You're getting rolling with what you're doing. If you don't have a love and a passion for this, you're not going to make it. There were so many times I wanted to give up and didn't see a path forward. And then something happened where I was able to move from Lexington down to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and I worked with Chris Lincoln, who did a lot of the horse racing for ESPN for years, and followed him around Tulsa when he was working at KTUL, and then went to Pittsburgh, Kansas, and replaced a gentleman there who had to leave to get over to Wichita to do Wichita State and do the Wichita Arrows AAA, and that's Mike Kennedy. Mike has been a sportscaster of the year in Kansas, and he's still there. They love him in Wichita, and then to be able to move on. But you have to have a passion for it, and you have to be flexible, and you have to put in a lot of hours. But the hours didn't matter to me. I really enjoyed what I did. I really feel like I haven't worked in 50 years because it's a real passion that I have to go to the ballpark every day. I mean, what a great place. What a great office, the press box at a ballpark, wherever we work. I feel so blessed to have that opportunity. That you have to have that kind of passion and dedication and be able to listen to those who will help you along the way, and then ask good questions to people who can help you. With Bud Bladner, Denny Matthews, with Jack Buck, Mike Shannon, with Bob Starr, who was in St. Louis, and with the people I worked with on a national level, with Bill White and Jerry Coleman, and with Kurt Gowdy. They were so accommodating. Ernie Harwell's another one. Chuck Thompson in Baltimore. I got to know all those people. I feel like Forrest Gump, that I started running. I went to one end of the country and back to the other, and so blessed that I got to see those personalities. That it has been a good ride over the 50 years I've been in the business. So if you want to put in the time, the dedication, and you have the heart to be a broadcaster, or in front of the camera or behind the camera, or selling advertising, whatever you want to do in life, period, have a passion for it, and then try to find some way to enjoy it and enjoy the people you work with. That'd be my advice.
Well, a legend in the sports industry, on our 2021 Missouri Sportscaster of the Year. Thank you so much again, and congratulations on your award, John.
Thank you so much, and I enjoyed the time.
Absolutely.